as we release stuff from our being, we raise the energy that's who we are, right? We become our true selves, and people can line up with it or they can peace out, Girl Scout. So that take and use the mirror neurons to your benefit, because when we bring light, others tend to reflect their light back in whatever capacity they have. Maybe they have just a little baby flashlight. Maybe they don't have a big floodlight. That's okay. So I'm going to ask you also to spend a few moments, perhaps after this ends, don't go right on to something new. Hi there. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Intuition, Your Success Compass. I'm Vicky, your mindset coach, intuitive guide along this path that helps you really identify yourself as both a soul and this amazing brain that you have being a human. We have both. So we may as well start to embrace it and actually look forward to understanding all of our wiring so that life is more joyful and less judgy, less self-sabotaging, less self-hatred. My goodness, there's so much of that happening. And I truly believe that when we all like each other, we're going to like other people. I feel like there's a ripple effect. I've been talking about this for decades. The ripple effect of becoming so sure of who you are and good with that. Like, no need to blast it everywhere, unless, of course, that's your desire. But to feel so centered and so joyful with life that that creates a ripple effect. So this week we're talking about healing, both in a personal and a universal level, world level, and how sometimes we just have to release some anger, and underneath it is all that love, and how we're resistant to releasing the anger or the stories or the trauma that we've been through in order to feel maybe disappointment in another person or to feel like you really miss them. And I'm going to share a story of how this came to be for me in what was a pretty wild experience, not, unheard of or even unfelt before, but hit me in a way that, true healing is happening, because doesn't it usually show up when we're involved in something else and we're like, I really don't have the time. Hence the idea of healing through the layers. Because while I don't believe focusing on what's broken or what feels to be traumatic is actually going to help us move forward, it provides such a pivot point or a diving off point. And it's always necessary to look under the layers. And I have loved that about my own intuitive abilities. And you all know, right? Like when somebody says, oh, no, I'm fine, and you can tell that there's something going on. Well, my internal movie screen plays out the whole movie of what's going on, what happened to them when they were 7, blah, 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 all of this stuff, which I turn down when I'm out in public or even when I'm hanging out with people, because that's rude to read just because you can. And also because I can get caught in those layers, because I want to help people release the layers so that that shiny, beautiful essence that you are gets to be seen by more than just me. I want you to see it. Like, I want the world to see how amazing you are, and then for all of us to share. And yeah, it's a position that others have said is very Pollyanna or just too optimistic. But you know what? That's how I'm wired. I know it to be true. And I want it for those of you who are willing to experience it to play along. And understanding how our brain works and then connecting that with the soul work is why we're here. Every one of you came in as a soul who decided to learn something, who's excited about learning something. And then our human brain wiring and our experiences as children, it just created some neural pathways that eventually we have to look at and to shift if we want true joy in our life. And I feel like any amount of attention we can give to that is helpful, as long as we're not like sitting in the story of it. I had the opportunity to work with someone in person, not as a client, so no divulging of information here, but work with someone who, as in the 4 hours we spent together, it took almost every opportunity to tell me about what was wrong in her life, wrong with people in her life, and she wasn't doing it in a way that was putting down the other people. It was a way of garnering attention, and finally, I said to her, because this was in kind of a social setting, I said to her, "Okay, I have participated long enough and have tried to stay out of whatever your story is." I said, "But you don't know me. You don't know what I do for a living." I said, "I can't do it anymore. I cannot do it anymore because I see the shiny self that is you and I see what you're working towards. And if I can help in any way, I'd be happy to. And the way I'm going to start is to say, anytime you're telling me a story about what's happening, I'm going to listen for a moment and then I'm going to say, okay, what's underneath that? Or what's the point of this? Like, are we just rehashing things? Because I know the brain does that. And I know and can feel your heart reaching for something else. And I said, if that's okay, that's what I'm going to do because likely we will be paired up again in this event thing that we're doing. And I just cannot sit by and I can't participate. I firmly believe that everyone needs to vent and everybody wants to be seen and to be heard. But if we're sitting in the crap with somebody else, we are helping to create more of that. So part of a layering effect and healing through the layers, I feel, is someone looking at you and loving you enough, even though they've just met you, to say, I'm not sure this is getting us anywhere. That sounds like your brain is doing a real number on you. And if I can help by, sometimes you just change the subject. That's what I used to do with my former mother-in-law, just change the subject. But that's because she would not be interested in understanding who she is, how she's wired, and how can she enhance her life in a joyful way. And sometimes you just don't invest in that. But this person that I was teamed up with, I can feel, and she even used her words to say, I hear me saying this. I don't know why I'm doing it. And I'm like, wow, I actually have the training and the decades of experience to help you understand that if you're willing, if it's not an overstep or annoying, because that can be annoying. I recognize that, which is often why I often don't share or don't oversuggest because not everybody's looking for that. And it can be, I don't want people to think that I'm scanning them. I don't care what you think about me, but I don't want people to think that I'm always scanning them when we're together because I do have to live in this world. And yes, it happens, but I don't acknowledge it. So we talked about the positive intelligence that I am a coach for, but also my intuitive abilities and the neuropathway work that I just love so much, and connecting with her soul level, knowing that what she was trying to pull from her essence, from the universe, was that her life could be so much lighter without all of this storytelling and all of this, "Let me reiterate to you why I'm miserable today." Well, no, let me help you find the joy in what today is. Why don't we try that? And then if something comes up and something is sparked, which that's what I'm gonna share for you about with you about my own big heart opening this week, because it did come from a joyful experience that led me to the pain I still had within. So the idea of combining our intuition with our neuropathways has fascinated me for decades. And it's now that I have some languaging and some experience with the positive intelligence to be able to line it up. And boy, do I just feel excited about this. So I want to bring that to you because our past, we all have past. We all have an experience where we felt let down by someone, perhaps even ourselves. And we all have had to either work through it or avoid it. We either put it so far back there, we're not even going to address it, and you just move forward in life, and sometimes that's necessary. Or we can sit in it and we can rehash it and we can meet people who are similarly wired to those that we've had previous experiences with, because our mirror neurons in our brain and our energy, our psychic field is actually going to pull us to those people who are reiterating messages that we've received in childhood and in previous relationships. We are all magnets. You are beautiful magnets walking around. My idea is, well, why don't I have the magnet of joy pull me through my life so that I can be fascinated about things and I can be fully present? And how can I, at the same time, understand that I have a complex, pretty traumatic background that my logical brain tells me I don't look for it anymore. I don't experience it in any relationship. But there's obviously still some layers in there that are ready to go. And I understand through the work that I've done in Neuro-Pathway, but also through positive intelligence, that my own brain is going to try to keep me safe, and it's going to try and block out anything that might help us, which is exactly why I believe every person that said, I didn't know it was in there, and 20 years later, this came up. Our brain, all those little folds that are in there, I often will see with people filing cabinets, and I've joked with myself, well, what drawer did I put that in? Because wasn't even aware that was still there. So what happened was I was going out to dinner with Mike, my partner. His mom turned 83, and we were going out to dinner, and I'm like, yes, of course I want to be there. And I had to drive probably about 50 minutes. So I was listening to some exercises and doing some positive intelligence work as I'm driving. PQ reps are where you pay attention and you focus on something for 10 seconds, and it helps your neural pathways shift from like a unsupportive side to a supportive side. So when I'm driving, I pay attention to how the steering wheel feels, or the sky has been so stunning here in the Northeast for the last couple of weeks. Just absolutely gorgeous. So I've been doing my PQ reps looking at the clouds. And of course, when I'm driving, I'm paying attention to the car, but I might pay attention to the really cool color car that is in front of me, things like that. So I'm doing that, and I'm thinking about how I can just open up and have a very loving experience in this dinner with people I adore at a fabulous seafood restaurant that made no, well, they did, but gluten-free battered haddock. It's been decades since I've had any kind of good battered fish. And yeah, I like it occasionally. And oh my goodness, did they do a good job. So I'm thinking about this evening and the couple hours we're going to have together, and there's exciting stuff going on in everybody at the table's life. So I knew we were going to have great conversation and it would be lovely. And I'm opening up my heart on the way there. And then I was thinking about my my father passed 17 years, I believe. I'm not really sure on that date, but I believe 17 years ago, somewhere around there. And my mother passed 26 years ago. And I thought, as a medium and as a person who understands wiring and everything, that I've pretty much processed all I could around my mom. I really did feel good about our relationship. Well, I also did some talk therapy, and that helped a lot to see her role in my childhood and how I was very frustrated with her. So I did the healing work, the expansion around her. I have known since the day my dad died that I was closing up shop. I was not going to visit that. Wasn't going to go there, and actually never even cried that he passed. Now, back it up a little bit, he had Alzheimer's, and we realized that, especially when my mother was passing because we were with him more, and it was just more evident that something was going on. And he was pretty young. He was like 59, 60. Well, no, he must have been older by then because he was older than her. But anyway, he's still pretty young. And we, as siblings, had to get together and figure out what are we doing. While we actually did this the night of my mom's funeral. So there was a lot going on. And of course, we rally, right? He was still okay to be home, but we would take turns spending weekends with him. And I consciously chose to do that because one, I wanted my daughter to have a relationship with him. And even though he was not the greatest dad in my eyes, he was a good pop-up to her. So, I knew she was safe and everything. So, I took my weekends because I wanted to establish a relationship with him that was beyond what my childhood self, and I did, and I'm grateful for that, and although Alzheimer's, I just did an Alzheimer's walk this weekend as part of my work I've been doing around him, because even though I'm a medium, I have not allowed any interaction with him. None. For 17 years. None. Not even "Oh, it feels like dad's energy." None. Because I was like, "That you're not getting inside. It's not happening." And I didn't feel like I was angry about it. It was just a no-go. So back up. This weekend, I go to dinner, have a lovely dinner celebrating Shirley, and I'm driving home by myself because we met up there, and I'm thinking about my parents, and I'm like, "You know what? I am so tired of carrying this frustration, this anger, this sadness about the parents I didn't get. Just tired of that. I'm going to have some empathy for my father, and I'm going to envision him as a 5-year-old because that's my soft spot, right? Like 5-year-olds, they're so fun, but they haven't reached the cheeky preteen area or anything. So that's where I went. And I pictured him as a 5-year-old. And yes, I understand our background makes us who we are today. Of course I do. That's a lot of the work I do with people is helping them unwind that and rewire to be in a place of who you are as a soul. And I understand his childhood and I know some of the elements of it. And I've been empathic towards that. But I don't understand beating your children. And I don't understand talking to them the way he did. And there will never be a place in me that says that that's okay because of your background. You know why? Because I grew up like that and I didn't do that to my children. So I know it's possible. And I've always held kind of that elitist energy, if you will, that everything was possible. And I don't excuse poor behavior. I just won't. It's not happening. I can understand that's from whence you came, but do better. And I will always hold that position for myself and for others. And yet, as I'm seeing him as a 5-year-old and I'm having empathy for him, I'm like, all right, I can be complete with this for me. We don't heal for other people. We don't forgive for other people. We do it for ourselves. And it's a gift you give yourself because your soul knows that it does not serve you to hold all of that in your cells, in your body, and in your spirit self. So I'm doing this, I'm opening up my heart, I'm feeling like, okay, for myself, I am going to release this because he is a soul. He's in non-physical, so he is a soul, and he was a soul. And I can't go back there and get that anyway. I won't ever, and I never have, even with the siblings who want to sugarcoat what went on. I have never done that. I've always said, nope, this was my experience, and I'm entitled to my experience, just like they are. They're entitled to love him as daddy. They are entitled to that. Absolutely. I want somebody to. Like I've said to his parents really appreciated him and saw him as who he was and everything, and I said, "I love that for you." Like, I want everybody to have that as a parent, and some of us didn't have that, and it's okay now. So as I'm driving along, this is opening up, right? Oh, did it open up? My heart blew wide open, and I'm driving, and I'm sure all of you who drive get this experience. At some point, you're driving along and the tears are just flowing. They're just flowing. And I'm thinking, I don't want to hold this anger anymore. Now, prior to the work and the experience of the last year and a half that I've done on more focused in my neural pathway work, I wouldn't have said I was holding anger. And why? Because I was avoiding saying that. I did not want to be like the angry father I had. I did not want to admit that's in there. I actually had a lot of pride around the fact that I have a very long fuse. Now, that's my temperament. That's not going to change. I have a very long fuse and I have a very clean hell no, where I will just walk away. I don't need to engage in this. Goodbye. I can be done. So I'm recognizing that I don't want to hold this for me, much like I've said to thousands of people. But when it comes to our own stuff, we have to do the process too. And as I'm driving along and I'm thinking, this is me unlocking a deeper understanding of his soul, a deeper compassion. Because you know what? I got the guy's business sense. I got his hands. My hands look very much like his. I got his work ethic. Who did I get his work ethic? Because that guy, one person, kept our family going for 8 children, even when he was on disability for probably 8 years, is what I remember. I wanted to do that. I wanted to shift for me, not for him. This will help his soul grow. What the work we do here will help those on the other side. There's still a soul contract there. There's still something going on that as we expand and let go and realize that, you know what, I'm actually not a derivative of you. I am DNA related to you, but I am my own being. I am my own soul. There's like this releasing of tension that happens. And yes, their soul will grow too. I've had people say to me, I don't give a shit about them. I don't care if they ever grow. And I'm like, see, that's the anger you're holding inside. Mine was so quiet that I didn't even realize I was there. And I'm grateful that it came out in the way it did. And the most impressive, I'm sure, ugly cry. I was driving, I couldn't really look, but when I pulled into my driveway, into my garage, I sat there for a good 15 more minutes, just sobbing all of this out and realizing that I believe in the soul so much. I want to believe in my father's soul. I want to believe in my mother's soul. And I didn't even realize the hurt that was there. And when Mike came home and he saw what was going on, he thought maybe I hit a deer or something, but which probably would bring me to that place after I took care of and made sure it was either dispatched or okay. And I said to him, I sat there watching your mom love you so much. And yeah, she drives him bonkers, but it's it's okay. And I heard her say how appreciative she was for you and your sister, and you're both sitting there at the table. I never heard that. I never received that from my parents. My mother said, "I love you," one time that I remember, and it was the night before she passed, and she lipped it. But I said it to her, and she said it back. And I count that. I count that. I don't doubt my parents love me. I just know that they weren't capable, and they were a little lazy. Full disclosure, a little bit lazy about doing that emotional stuff. And I recognize that we have therapy and everything. You see, you can go on the story train, but eventually we have to release the pain from my 5-year-old self that did not get what she needed. And I realize that as I'm letting this go, that I'm only hurting myself in doing this. Like, for those of you watching the video, that picture back there, right there, is a picture of me at about 8, 9 months old, because that's where I know I was still that soul connect lit up, and any pictures that I see after that, I don't feel that. And that's the sadness I have. Like, that's the frustration I have. So as this is coming out and I realized I've never heard I appreciate you or I care about you or I love you. My parents did this thing where they would tell the other siblings. Like, I heard how much they admired one of my older sisters. She never heard it either from my mother. She heard it from my dad. But that's semantics. So as I'm doing this and I'm reflecting on it, and then I'm Mike and I took the dog for a walk afterwards because it needed to move a little bit. And that she moves very fast, but needed to move. And I said to him, I just miss them. I miss them. I was just becoming an adult. I've never had a meal out with my parents. I mean, they'd come to the house, we'd go to their house, but I never had that experience that I've had now with Shirley hundreds of times over the 6 years. So, and I'm grateful for that because it's helping me see the relationship that's possible and the healing that comes because she's been in my life, and the humor because there's also a part of me, total disclosure, that says, phew, I already did that with my parents. Don't have to do it again. So these layers, I want you to understand that you're layering. Yeah, there's the onion analogy, but I think it goes even deeper than that. I think it's interstitial. I think that we have energy that's even within our energy field in your mental body and your etheric body and your emotional body that are holding on to some of this, and you can release it. The absolute dance with it is to not become the victim of what you've already lived. We all have a victim saboteur, every one of us, and it will show up. But by recognizing what's going on in your physical brain, you can use that to release the energy that's caught in the rest of you. I was absolutely, my avoider saboteur was absolutely front and center. And I've been working on the avoider specifically for the last 2 months. So it doesn't surprise me that this stuff's shown up, but it's also fabulous that this has shown up because this is not a gift I'm doing for my father, although I am very happy that his soul will release. And should he show up to me in the medium sense, I will allow it now. I mean, I had a really cool experience. I forgot about this. A couple of weeks ago, I bought Mike a wood chipper and he couldn't get it going. And I said, your choke's wrong. The choke's not right. And he went inside to get the manual. And I was like, just got to move the choke, pull it, and start it right up. And when he came out, he was like, what the heck? And I'm like, I felt bad because I thought I took the glory of starting it away from him. But he's like, no, that is really cool that you knew that. And then I realized, well, I knew that because of watching my father work on a lawnmower or the rototiller or whatever he was working with, and the boat motor and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if a boat motor has a choke on it, but humor me. But, like, that stuff's in there, and that's what I decided. I want to embrace that. Like, I want to embrace the musical ability that I got from my mom. I want to embrace my love of animals that I got through my mom. Not dad. And I want to be in this sage, this soul, this appreciation for the fact that these two people who loved each other, I did witness that. They loved each other and they taught me that that was possible in relationships. And but I want to walk around in this. I want to breathe it. I want to be grounded in it. I want to be curious when a relationship's not lining up for me and not hold a resentment or an anger. So this is possible for all of us. I don't have any special wiring that allows me to do this. I have activated my intuition so much that this is accessible, but it's accessible to you too. And one of the things I would suggest that you do is use your power of imagination, visualization. If you're not somebody who sees things in pictures in your head, that's fine. Feel it out, know it out. Whatever your superpower is, use that. What I would like you to do is hold the energy of someone that you've had challenge with. Do not go picking the most abusive or dismissive or narcissistic person in your life. Don't do that. We are talking minimal. Is there someone at work who cracks their gum? Like, is there someone in your extended family that you don't like their Facebook posts? Because when we judge others, we're judging ourselves. And that pattern can really take the joy out of life. So pick someone who is mildly annoying. It could be your kid that day. It could absolutely be someone you're raising where you're like, oh, they are on my last nerve. So take that energy and hold it and then envision them with compassionate eyes, with a compassionate heart, and ask your intuition, what is it that this person needed and didn't get? What didn't they get that in their life that they needed? This is not for you to go put it there. This is not for you to take on one more thing. And if you're doing it with your child, this is not for you to judge this is for you to look within and also externally, use your intuition to feel into what is it that they needed that they didn't get. And then does that change your feelings towards them? I wish I didn't have to put this disclaimer there, but in the interest of not getting a bunch of emails or social media posts, I am not condoning poor behavior or abuse or anything like that. I am saying connect with this other person and what they didn't get so that you may take a step back from their field and you may empathize with the soul or the human that they are. I do not I'm not okay with the abuse I received as a child or the fact that I had to work through this or that I got special treatment in my family. I'm not okay with that. But I'm also not going to carry it. And it's not going to help me moving forward because it may actually activate the victim in me that keeps that active, right? So no longer. So if you could do that, if you could take maybe a minute and feel that out. What didn't they get? You may have insight into that. And let's face it, we humans aren't all that complex. We have layers and we have emotions, but usually you can figure out what somebody didn't get. If they're really arrogant, they're probably insecure. If they're really needy, they likely did not get seen or heard. I'm not asking you to step into their story with them. What I'm asking you to do is recognize your own judgment of whatever their behavior is and put that aside for just a moment and connect with them to see what they didn't get, what they might need. Now, if you're in the position to fulfill that, like in a personal relationship, and you realize that and you're like, oh, actually, I do want to really hear when this person is talking. That's not a big lift. It's not a hard thing to do. You have 2 ears, use them. Or if you recognize in your own kiddos that you've been very distracted and you're seeing that what they're not getting is your full attention, well, then you put down the devices and you give them quality time. It's not that you have to be totally tuned in. Actually, that doesn't work either because it just gets you entitled, little buggers. So, but spend that time where you are actively listening or participating in their life too, so that they don't have to unravel this stuff later. So, I'm going to ask you to take these moments each time you might recognize that the judgment is coming up towards another's behavior or towards yourself, and take some moments. Do those PQ reps, like we call them in positive intelligence, positive quotient. You can rub your fingers together and feel all the ridges on them. Fingers like this, if you have both arms. I particularly like rubbing my fingers on my IT band. Maybe it helps, but that's very grounding for me. Or wiggle your toes, squeeze your buttocks together and get some good glute firing. Whatever can get you into your body, because the more we're in our body, the more we can have a heart opening. And I actually started to remember the times when I was doing my weekends with my dad and he was in full sundowning mode. I never redirected him. He worked the 11 to 7 shift for my teenage years, which was a blessing. So I would have him get dressed. And then I'd say, "Oh, I need to borrow the car. Are you okay if I drive?" We'd go for a drive. It only took another 10 minutes before I could say, "Whew, how was last night? How many U-boats did you unload?" Because he was a grocery manager. "Was it busy at the store?" And he would go into a memory he had from probably a night that was really busy, or funny stories. I got to hear funny stories of what happened at the grocery store. I'll spare you the details because we all have to go to grocery stores, and probably this stuff still happens. And that heart opening that I've had towards him has calmed me. It's made me more. This is just a couple days in the processing. I wanted to get it fresh, but I expect it to continue to expand, because once you release the anger that you're holding inside, you release contention within your body. You release a struggle to be yourself. Don't we all just want to be ourselves? We want to be our own lit up being. And it's hard to do that if you're allowing someone else to live in there and not in a positive way. Now, some of you may still have these people in your life and you may still be interacting. You can say, "Great, Vicky, that's wonderful. He's croaked. You don't have to do anything about that." Well, I would say that the same thing can happen in your life with the person who's here physically, and you give them the opportunity to rise up to your frequency. Because as we release stuff from our being, we raise the energy that's who we are, right? We become our true selves, and people can line up with it or they can peace out, Girl Scout. So that take and use the mirror neurons to your benefit, because when we bring light, others tend to reflect their light back in whatever capacity they have. Maybe they have just a little baby flashlight. Maybe they don't have a big floodlight. That's okay. So I'm going to ask you also to spend a few moments, perhaps after this ends, don't go right on to something new. Visualize yourself opening up your heart space. And it's a fallacy or a false claim that the more we open up as empaths, the more at risk we are. I have found that the more I open up, the less affected by other people's energy I get. Now, I'm also really good at grounding and remembering to put white light around me and sleeping well and drinking lots of water. You do not have to be a victim of your empathy. The more empathy that you have that's balanced, the better boundaries you'll have. Maybe that's another episode. So as you open up your heart, I'm going to invite you to open it up and tap into what you are ready to release. What's ready to go? A good indication will be something where you're like, "Oh, I'm so tired of that." Or "This thing again." It just needs to be released. So as you're opening that up and connect with the true feelings, be willing to say you're ticked at somebody. I almost said the other word, family show. Be willing to say you're angry with that person. Two things can exist at the same time. You can say yes and. Yes, Salon Bador was incredibly abusive to me in my childhood. And he is a soul that I want to release and no longer carry within my tissues. No more issues in my tissues. So I would love for you to try that. Just give it a try. If it doesn't work now, don't worry about it. Like I said to you in the beginning, this guy croaked 17 years ago. Some things take time. Some things are easier to release and some things are very difficult. So this not only improves your inner peace, it transforms how we view others. And it also will transform your current relationships, because if there's not a guarding there towards these feelings coming up, there's more of an opening for all feelings to be valid and to be heard and expressed. And to the reverse of what I said about the people being here, the healing of our emotions around those who have croaked will profoundly affect you. So I wish you well. If you need help, I'm here, VickiBaird.com. Join me for the 7, I put extra week in there, program, a 6-week program that's coming up, Mindset Breakthrough, because when we break through, our mindset holds, our intuition flourishes. It's a combination of positive intelligence and intuitive development. Cannot tell you how thrilled I am to know what I do in this world. And some of the work I've done with positive intelligence has helped me come to this place. And I also want that for everyone, the blending of the intuition and the mindset. You have your wisdom, you have your mindset, and then you have joy and an absolute experience of life as I feel like we were meant to live. So check out the website, VickiBaird.com, and I will see you there, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Intuition, Your Success Compass. I appreciate you being here. If you would like more information about developing your intuitive skills, removing those blocks, and creating the life that feels the most successful to you, then head on over to VickiBaird.com. That's VickiBaird.com. And check out the courses, the groups, and the Spaces app that will allow you to be part of our community and know about upcoming events and specials. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.